Let's do something really crazy here. What if we wanted it not just to list it out for us, but actually open our web browser with that site? And before I get into it, if you're learning programming and you're on your way to joining this field, you want to become a pen tester, definitely arm yourself with the top 10 pen testing interview questions that you need to know to absolutely ace your next interview. Welcome back to some more C#, showing you guys just how I would go about learning a new programming language. What are the steps that I would go through? So hopefully this can help you out if you're learning maybe Python, maybe C# as well, or whatever programming language you're focused on. Now, last time, just a quick recap, check out the video if you haven't already, but in the previous video, we're messing around with the different data types and the typecasting, seeing how we can, if we try to print something to the console, how we could do that if we're dealing with different data types. I want to go to the next step from there, basically. So let me just open up a browser and we'll walk through this together. So if I go to W3 Schools, C#, we can kind of continue on that learning journey where we left off. We're just looking at some of the different things we can do, the basics of the language just to start out for us. That's where we're going to stick to for now, and then we'll start doing the more interesting things as we learn more and more of the language. So let's see here. We definitely want to check out some of the if-else statements. I think that's the next thing that we want to do. Now, when we do an if-else statement, we can do a less than, or we can see, let's say less than or equal to, not equal to. And those are the things, basically. They do have a switch statement as well. But yeah, let's just try this for ourselves. The way that I'm going to do this is if I were to create some variables, right? So let's create integer. We'll just call it my int again. We'll set it equal to 5. And maybe we'll say like int 1, int 2. Let's make this 7. And we can just have a basic if statement, right? Let's start simple here. And, well, okay, it actually kind of, the fact that we're using Visual Studio, it's kind of helping us out already by suggesting, would you like to compare these two? Yeah, we could start with that. That's nice. We didn't have to look up, like, what exactly is the syntax on the if statement, because it pretty much filled it in for us. So console.writeLine, the numbers are equal, right? Because if that was the case, then we know that the numbers are equal. So we'll print that to the screen. And else, let's see here. If we want to do an else statement, what do we need? Console.writeLine, the numbers are not equal. So let's try this. And yeah, let's run this, see what happens here. We would expect that they'll say that they're not equal. But we'll see what it ends up displaying. And it looks like I missed the S there. But yeah, we got the fact that they're not equal. So I'll just add that. So now let's make them the same just to verify that this is working properly. The numbers are equal. Okay, perfect. So now we see pretty easily how we can do this kind of stuff, these comparisons, right? If we switch this back to 7, we could try like a quick comparison. If 1 is greater than 2, we can say int 1 is greater than int 2. Else int 1 is less than int 2. But they might be equal, right? So if we just had this, this wouldn't be enough, right? We want to account for all of the potential things that could happen. And I'll show you just why in a minute, right? So int 1 is less than int 2. Because 5 is less than 7, right? But what if they were equal? What would happen? Any predictions, right? Just think about this for a second. Which one would you expect? to get written. Now we'll run it. And it says int1 is less than int2. Now the reason for that is because 5 is not greater than 5. And the else statement is because it's not greater, int1 is not greater than int2, then it's simply just going to print off that it's less than. That might not necessarily be the case, right? They could be equal. So we want to account for that as well. So that's where we'd use an else if statement. So we could say right here, right? First we'll do the check if you know, and we could do this in either order. We could actually do it like this. How about we could have our else if statement be this here. And let's see, is it elif or else if? Else if, there we go. So we do the first if statement here saying if they're equal, then do a console.writeLine. The numbers are equal, right? And then if they're not equal, it's going to go to this next check and say, well, else if int1 is greater than int2, then it'll display that. And if that's not the case, then it must be less than it. So let's try this again. What we'd expect to see this time is that we should see it display that they're equal. We'll just run this test really fast here. And yeah, they're equal. Now we have it working properly, right? If int1 is greater than int2, like the case here, we should see that reflected as well. Yep, 1 is greater than 2. And then, 1 is less than 2 in this case, right? So perfect. We've worked with some, comparison statements, some if-else. Now, what is the next thing that we really want to get some experience with, right? For loops are really big. So let's take a look at how we can write for loops in C#. So loops, and I'll show you some application. We're gonna actually, I can think of a pretty interesting way we can really take what we learned and go beyond just the tutorials. So first of all, we'll start with this, right? A simple for loop here that's gonna write all the numbers to the console. So we could try something like that. So let's add user input because that's a very important thing that we didn't cover yet. So if we do, where is it? We can add this into the for loop here in a second, but let's first just do some user input here. And you see we have console.readLine. So write-line and read-line should be easy enough to remember. So first thing we're going to do before the for loop comes into play, let's just do a console.writeLine and say enter a number. So we'll prompt the user to enter a number, and then we'll say int number equals console.readLine. Now, I think this is going to error out. And the reason for that, you see this showing up red here, it's because it says here in very tiny text, probably for you guys, cannot implicitly convert type string to int. So we're going to need to typecast it. So we could see we could just Google that. Say we didn't even know, right? Cannot implicitly convert type string to int. So we could look that up. Cannot implicitly convert type string to int C#. And we can look at how would we fix this issue. And here we go. We see parse the integer out of the string. Well, this is a little bit different case here. So why don't we say console.readLine, right? That's what we're trying. Here we go. So yeah, if we're trying to do a console.readLine, we get this error. We can do a convert to int32. We can do this. We should be able to do and we can do the parse int as well. So there's a bunch of different ways, or we could just typecast it like that. So you see there's a number of different ways that we can do this. So if we do convert to int 32, and we'll just wrap this in parentheses. Now that should be good. So if we'll just print it to the screen for right now. So we'll just do a simple console.writeLine on number. So we'll just start with this, really simple. So first thing it's going to do is prompt us to enter a number. Let's try the number 8. And it just prints 8 to the screen. Great. So now let's use this with a for loop, shall we? So, you know, we can start with their example. We could work off their example, right? So they had 4, and let's just go and take a look at what they had here on the for loops. Int I. So they had something like this, right? I'm just going to copy this for now. The best way would be to just actually type it out if you're completely new to programming. But here we go. So integer I equals 0. So that's our counter. And as long as it's less than 5, we're going to do whatever is inside here, and we're going to increment I by 1 each time until eventually when it is 5, it won't run. So if we do a console.writeLine on I, which I think I'm missing some braces, right? Some squiggly braces. Let's see. Yes. Let's add that. Cool. So you can see here what this does. For right now, what I'm going to do is comment out. That's not how you do a comment in this language. It's this. I'll comment out these lines for right now, just to show you what's going on with this. So we would expect 0 to 4, by the way. And you might be wondering, well, why didn't it type 5, right? You just have to kind of step through it one step at a time, right? So in the beginning, I is equal to 0, which is less than 5. So it's going to print I. It's going to print 0 to the screen, as you saw here. Then it's going to add 1 to I. So now I is now 1. It's less than 5. So it'll print 1 to the screen, right? It will keep going until eventually it's 4, which is still less than 5. So then it will print that to the screen as well, and then increment it. And then once I becomes 5, that's not less than 5. That's equal to 5, right? If this was less than or equal to, it would run again, right? So, for example, if I said less than or equal to, this would be 0 to 5 now, is what we would expect. Let's see here. Yep, there we go. Not sure what happened there for a second, but now we got 0 to 5 because on the the iteration where I equals 5, it is equal to 5. So this condition would pass and it would write 5 to the screen. Then when it's 6, it wouldn't run anymore. So hopefully that makes sense to everyone. If not, let me know in the comments below. So now we can kind of put these two together, which I thought would be an interesting exercise. So if I were to have this that we had before, instead of setting I equal to 0, we can set I equal to number, right? Or actually we set I equal to 0, but we could set this equal to number. And then as long as it's less than that number, it's gonna print that to the screen. So let's just combine everything together, do something fun with this, right? So enter a number. Let's say we enter the number 7, lucky number 7. Now it will go through 7 times because the number I is less than 7 is what it's looking for. So it's going to keep going through until I is equal to 7. Then it will terminate. Pretty cool, right? But let's do something even cooler. Let's make this into something practical. Let's keep going here. Let's say that we wanted to create let's say we wanted to apply this to loop through each time. We'll do a for each, and we'll have a list. And for each item in that list, we will do something to it. Here, they have a list of cars, and it's going to print the car name each time. Let's say we had, for example, a list of maybe websites. That would be something, could be practical. So I'll just delete all this for now. So let's say we have string. If we want to make an array, we can just do this. As you see here, this is an array. So this one, we'll call it sites. And let's have a bunch of sites, right? So we could do, I don't know, google.com, yahoo.com, apple.com, and amazon.com. So we'll just go with this list here. And now let's create a for loop to iterate through that. So we'll do for each. This will be a for each loop. And oh, it was smart enough to suggest it for us. So we could say for each string site and site. So we are actually declaring this variable inside of this statement here. So for each site and sites, we're going to have it do something. We'll do a console.writeLine on site. I really like this editor, all the suggestions here. So what we'd expect is it would go through this array and just list out all the sites. Let's do one even better than that. Let's have it print out HTTPS : or / name of the site. Let's try that instead. So we'll run it. And there you go. We've went through the list. HTTPS, google.com, yahoo.com, apple.com, amazon.com. Let's take this even a step further. Let's do something really crazy here. What if we wanted it not just to list it out for us, but actually open our web browser with that site? So you have a list of websites. Maybe it's a list of news sites, common sites that you would open up. This is actually what I did in Python when I was first learning Python way back in the day. There was common cybersecurity news sites that I would want to go to. I had a script where it would just go through the script and open all those in my web browser, so I wouldn't even have to remember them or type them in manually. So that's some cool automation. Let's do that, right? So all we need to do is only a few modifications we need to make. First of all, we're not writing to the console for this anymore. This is going to be a variable. We'll call it URL, because that's what that is, right? We're taking the site, we're turning it into a URL by prepending the HTTPS. Great. So we've done that. Now we need to figure out, we don't know yet, how can we actually spawn, I guess it's Microsoft Edge in my case, right? That's the browser I have. I don't have Chrome on here yet. So we can look that up and see how can we do that. So if I come here and I say how to, and I'm literally going to just Google exactly what I'm trying to do in human language, how to spawn Microsoft Edge C#. Process.start method, system diagnostics. This is from Microsoft's documentation. So it looks like you can do a start process in order to do that. So we're probably going to need to pull in this. Let's see where it's at. Process.start, and then whatever process you need to start. So let's just Google process.start Microsoft Edge and find out what it's called. How to launch MS Edge in C#. Perfect. There you go. Process.start Microsoft Edge.exe. So let's go and try that for ourselves now. We will need an import. What was it? Let's just refer to this here. Using system diagnostics. So it looks like we're going to need that import. So let's add that using system diagnostics. And then for each URL, we're going to do start process, or was it process.start? I think it was process.start. Had that backwards. So process.start URL. Well, hold up. Process.start Microsoft Edge. I think I needed this here. Microsoft Edge, comma, and then the URL we're trying to open with that. That looks good. Let's give it a try. And, oh, there we go. We have launched all of the web pages that we're trying to go to. So we got Amazon, Google, Apple, and Yahoo. Perfect. So yeah, hopefully that shows you some cool applications you can start building. Have fun with code. Don't just go through a book and do all the boring exercises, but make them your own. Start practicing and building stuff that you think is cool, right? That's the best way to learn, really, and hopefully I was able to showcase that in this video. In the next one, we're going to get into some even more interesting stuff as we dive further into this language, and eventually we get to doing some really cool pen testing related stuff now that we're getting the basics down. So hope to see you there. Definitely catch up on the series if you haven't already. You can also check out the Black Hat Python one. I'll put that on the screen for you right now. I'll see you guys right over in those videos. Thanks for watching.